All right, good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for everyone who's joining us through Microsoft Teams, Facebook Live, and HTV. And I am pleased to hand it directly to Ray Miller, our Assistant Director here at HCDD, to kick off our introductions.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Hardy Yards pre-proposal session for our Notice of Funding Availability for a tract of land within the near north side of Houston. A bit unique of calling it a Notice of Funding Availability because this is a NOFA and a presentation to discuss bringing this tract of land to fruition of providing affordable home, single-family home for Houstonians. Before we get started, for those of you are not aware, this is going to be part of our large tract development program. Whereas we are bringing not only single-family homes, but we're also building communities within Houston. And this will be a portion of a rollout of several initiatives that we're doing within the large tract program, including an application for financing that we have outstanding that's going to be due next week. We're not going to talk about that today, but today we're specifically talking about the parcel of land within the near north side neighborhood known as Hardy Yards. So we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to be discussing everything related to what the requirements of the grant and the financing that's going to be part of this proposal. And you're going to hear from a lot of speakers today and presentations about what it's going to take to anybody who's applying to receive this tract of land and financing from the city, and the requirements are going to be on top of that, in addition to what is going to be the requirements for selecting the right developer and proposal. So we have a lot to talk about today, and we're excited that you're able to join us. So I'm going to turn it back over to Jeremiah, who's going to talk to you about some of the housekeeping items and the agenda for today. So Jeremiah.
Thank you, Ray, and we're going to get right into it, everyone. So to Ray's point, you have an all-star HCD team, just so that you know who we'll be speaking with today. Of course, you just heard from Ray, who's our Assistant Director. You'll also be hearing from Steve Harris, who is our Division Manager over this program. And Olivia Bush will be answering questions throughout the chat. She is our subject matter expert regarding the Hardy Yards NOFA, Notice of Funding Availability. I will say NOFA to help facilitate this conversation. And then there's me. I will be helping moderate the conversation throughout our time together. You will also be hearing from our finance procurement folks and our compliance and operations team. So you'll be hearing from Tawana in just a few moments about compliance, and Crystal and Maribel later on Tawana will be talking about compliance, procurement, and Crystal and Maribel will be talking about compliance at the end of our presentation together. And to Ray's point, a few housekeeping items to help make sure this presentation goes smoothly for everyone. Of course, you've probably heard this over and over the last couple of years, but please mute your microphone. That will help make sure that everyone can hear us clearly as we present this information to you today. And just as so everyone knows that the pre-proposal conference or this webinar is being recorded. We will have that up for you on our HCD website in the next day or two, as well as this PowerPoint presentation. And during our time together, we highly encourage you to enter your questions into the chat box. As you saw in the last two slides, you have a ton of subject matter experts on this. They will be answering your questions in real time. And we will also have at the end of this presentation time for further Q&A. We will read the questions and answers that those of you attending have given us. And then we'll have time at the end if there are any questions that haven't been addressed. So again, please make sure whatever format you're watching us, whether it's through Teams, whether it's through Facebook Live, please put those questions in the chat and we'll be happy to answer as we go along. And let's go right into our agenda today. We hinted at it earlier, and thank you for that outline, Ray. We will first go through our procurement procedures and deadlines, and then we're going to jump right into the actual Hardy Yard site itself, and we'll follow that up with the project summary and eligibility, our selection criteria, and then round out with the compliance requirements. Before we jump into that, I do want to make sure everyone knows that all this information is spelled out in our NOFA, our Notice of Funding Availability, and we'll have links for you to easily access that as well. Of course, that NOFA is the Bible of this, and So if you have any questions that we don't address during our time together, please make sure to get those in. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Tawana, and she will talk more about procurement procedures and deadlines. Tawana?
Yes, good morning. My name is Tawana Roan, and we're going to start with talking about these procurement procedures, which is very important to all of you who will respond to this NOFA. So after this proposal conference is over, all communications must be sent in writing to myself. You have my email address. There will be no direct contact with the program area. And as we move from this slide, I'm going to just actually read to you the no contact information because it is very important. So the questions must be submitted by December the 31st, no later than 5 p.m. All questions. There will be no phone calls asking questions. They must be submitted in writing and sent to me. Your final responses will be issued by January 17, 2022. And the final responses will be a letter of clarification which will be posted to the website where you have obtained the NOFA, and your application due date. That would be due February 21st, 2022 at 3:00 p.m. Now, the only time that would change is if something drastic happens. So make sure that you get your application in on time. We will not accept it after 3:00. And please do not call me at 2:45 and say you're on 45 stuck in traffic trying to get your application in. That's the deadline, okay? Now let's move to the next slide, please. The no contact period. Now I'm going to have to read this to you all because this is very important. After this NOFA session is over, you're not to contact anyone on this line in this meeting, nor are you to contact the mayor, your council member, or anybody else in regards to this NOFA. So I'm going to read it because we need to make it very clear because we don't want your application to be thrown out because you have violated this no contact period. Neither proposer nor any person acting on the proposal's behalf shall attempt to influence the outcome of the award by the offer. Presentations or promise of gratitudes, favors, or anything of value to any appointed or elected official or employee of the city, their families, or staff. Now, move to the next slide. I'm not going to really read the next, but I think that's all this is very clear. So just to reiterate, any questions regarding this NOFA after this session is over will come to myself. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be out of the office like that the week in December, but I will still get the questions. Do not forward them to anybody. Send them all to me. We will make sure that we respond to them on the due date as you see, and it will be by letter of clarification. But before we leave this slide, on page 44 of 53 of the NOFA, it tells you where the NOFA is due. So I really hope you guys read this NOFA as well. It tells you where it's due, and it tells you that the application becomes our property. So give us your best application, and we will look forward to working with you. Thank you. That's it. Do you want me to go over the timelines, Ray?
No, that's quite
Okay.
all right, Tawana.
Gotcha.
And as a reminder, and thank you for that, we will emphasize over and over and over again. It will get boring to you, but we will say it over and over again. Please read the NOFA. That is the Bible of this program and your proposal. And again, this PowerPoint presentation and this recording will be uploaded. So all this information that we are going over, including this timeline and our reference materials, are on the website, and you'll have easy access to that. And with that, thank you again, Tawana, for that and going over our procurement rules. And we're going to jump right into it now. So let's talk about the Hardy Yard site. Make sure that all of y'all are here for the right NOFA. And so this is an overhead view of the site itself. It's approximately 10.7 acres. And excuse me. So as you saw just from that last slide, the site itself is near the North Main Street and Burnett intersection, adjacent within a stone throws away to that Burnett Transit Center, which was on the left on that picture, and has an amazing view of downtown itself. And another thing that's not mentioned on this slide that we can mention, a lot of passionate near Northsiders who engaged in our community engagement sessions this past summer. So they, and Camila, thank you for that information on the Zoom lagging a bit. So I'll make sure to let each slide, each bullet point load, give it a second. As we are getting a lot of interest, so a lot of folks joining us. But I just want to wrap up with the Hardy Yards site by mentioning that we did do extensive community engagement, and there's a lot of passionate folks in the near north side that have keen interest on this site. So a passionate neighborhood looking to see affordable homes built at the Hardy Yards location. And with that, we will transition into project summary and eligibility. Again, all the information that we will be discussing is in the NOFA. I promise you would get bored of me saying that, and I promise to keep that intent and make sure that you are all aware of that. So let's talk about the project summary. At least 51% of the homes that are built must be at affordable prices to low and moderate income home buyers. The city will convey the land, finance a portion of the infrastructure, and/or the construction costs. It is the responsibility of the chosen awardee, the developer, to build, market, and sell those homes. Moving on to the next slide in the project summary section. This project is funded through Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Funds, or in this specific case with the abbreviation CDBG DR17 funds. 15.8 million of that, of 20 million, is in land acquisition and due diligence. The land itself appraised for approximately 15.5 million. And the rest of the 20 million, which is 4.2 million, is for that land construction, land infrastructure or home construction. And moving on to the more detail about what an eligible project entails. Homes must be no smaller than 2 bedrooms and no larger than 4 bedrooms. All affordable homes must be of equivalent size, quality, materials, and finishes as the market rate homes. There must be no perceptible concentrations of homes through income level. And all homes must be new construction. The city will consider site-built or prefabricated approaches in your design. And you must meet all requirements in the Hardy Yards Property Owners Association, POA, or Exhibit E. On our next slide on eligibility, oops, I hit bullet point a little too quickly. Your proposal must have at least 200 homes. At least 51% of those homes built must be sold to households at or below 80% area median income as determined by HUD, or AMI for area median income. And those affordable homes can only be sold to households directly or indirectly impacted by Hurricane Harvey. So they must have that tie back. In other words, have lived in the city of Houston when Hurricane Harvey hit. And we will now transition to the next point, next section of our PowerPoint presentation, which is our selection criteria. Our scoring rubric is 70% quantitative and 30% qualitative. And we're going to go over this in a lot more detail in a few slides. We do want to make sure that everyone knows the application score and ranking is not the sole determination of award status. A selection panel will convene and finalize and itemize the list of applications to present to the mayor's office for approval, as well as city council. And HCDD, will recommend an award at the city council housing committee and then to the full city council. A little bit more about our selection criteria. This is an overview, and we're going to go into the scoring rubric shortly that goes into more detail of what this means. So what the city is looking for is developer capacity and experience and likelihood to succeed in all of the identified areas, which again, all this information is in our NOFA. We want to make sure that the awardee is able to achieve all the objectives identified in our community outreach efforts that I mentioned earlier. And we want to see an appropriate balance of affordable homes to market rate homes, as well as an appropriate home size, density, open space, and the number of bedrooms that we also mentioned earlier. And of course, overall design and build of the quality of homes themselves are vitally important. And affordability value, which is we have about 4 or 5 slides dedicated to talking about that in detail, so I won't mention that, but that is, I won't go into that further here, but we are going to go into that in much more detail in just a few minutes. And I guess I do want to say before we move on that proposals that provide a range of affordability options based on income levels is preferred, and we'll talk about that more when we talk about affordability value in more detail. Finally, in terms of this part of the selection criteria, HCDD does recognize that all of the priorities that we listed in the previous slide may be difficult to achieve simultaneously. So the awarded proposal will not be required to excel in every area that we just mentioned. And now we're going to go into the meat of it, which is the actual scoring itself. The first section will be developer capacity, which is a total of 50 points, which will be actually divided into subcategories, up to 10 points for prior experience, up to 10 points for Houston experience at scale, ability to access capital, again, also up to 10 points, financial strength, also up to 10 points. And finally, the subcategory here for developer capacity, prior experience of affordable housing, again, up to 10 points. The second half of our scoring rubric begins with disaster resilience, which is also up to 10 points. Home attributes, also up to 10 points. Community attributes, up to 10 points. And affordability value, up to 20 points. So we're going to go into detail on each of these sub-bullets that I just went over. And with that, you'll hear first from Ray Miller, and then you'll hear from Steve Harris. So Ray, whenever you're ready, please take over and talk about developer capacity.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Well, those of you who are doing the math, that you're seeing that developer capacity overwhelmed, well, it will be approximately half the score for us selecting the right developer. As we have invested almost $16 million into this site already, it is imperative that the city select a developer that has the chops and wherewithal to do this. So we're going to talk a little bit about how is that going to be measured. So the first item that we're going to be looking at is how many homes have you done? So the applicant coming to us with the highest number of homes within their portfolio that they have developed will basically set the bar, and they will receive 10 points. Everybody else that is going to be applying is going to be basically stacked up against that, top score. So if you go to the next slide, you're going to see how that breaks out. So if you get developer A, who's coming at the top of the list, he comes up with 500 homes, he gets the 10 points. Developer B comes home, they did 375 points. Well, we take a proportional relationship to that amount of homes, and they get, that pro rata share of those points of 7.5, and then go down the list with developer C at 100 homes. And so off the bat, you see that there is an emphasis to make sure that we have, if you're going to apply within this NOFA, that you have a substantial background and resume to show us that you have the wherewithal, the experience, and the personnel to do this site. The Lennar and the DR Horton Homes or anybody else who might be coming, that will be a weighted item, but keep in mind that is not the only item that we're going to be looking at. So we're also going to be looking at relative prior experience. So one item of clarification though I do want to make on that. So there are going to be questions about condos. We will accept condos if that was within your background. Does not have to be single family detached all the way, but we do want to make sure that you have experience, background, and the wherewithal for to deal with home owner occupied units, and that's going to be the measure and the key that we're going to want to look at. And then, on the technical side, we're going to go out to the hundredths place on the decimal, just so it's very clear of how we're going to be evaluating it. So if we go to the next item on the experience level, so it's not just about how many homes have you done, but where have you done them? So if you are headquartered in Harris County and you've had the $100 million of single family home sales, that is a highest score within our review. If you're not in Harris County, but you still have that background of the $100 million sales, well, that's a relative 8 points. But then we have a sliding scale as well that as long as you are, within the range of 50 to 100 millions and you're still located here locally, that's 6 points. And then, but if you're not located here, if you do not have that range, it's going to be the lower portion of that criteria. So the location does matter as well. And they're also going to want to see some demonstration in the past. So letters demonstrating past finance on similar projects and LOIs. This is something similar that we have seen in other programming, but we're going to want to see letters from lenders that you've had or other investors that you have done this type of investment on this scale. And we also have a sliding scale here. So if you have shown us that you've been able to develop and get the financing for this type of exactly this type of project, that's going to be worth the highest amount of points. If they're not quite there, but you're still showing the demonstration of the financing that you have done projects similar in scale, but on a less, slightly less prevalent. So that'll be worth, approximately half the point. So if you're in the 100 home range, that's going to be worth, a less amount of points. We're going to look at your balance sheet and financial strength. And so your financials will be a part of the application package, but you'll have to be able to show us where your company's financial strength is in relation to the developer cost. So what does that mean? So developer A, who proposes they're going to, it's going to take $60 million of cost, but they have, $30 million of assets and liquidity on their balance sheet. And then if you take a ratio, that's going to be worth, 5 points. But the higher you can get to the amount of development costs per the liquidity, it's going to be maximum of 10. So again, it's going to be this one's going to be weighted for developers and companies who have strong balance sheet, strong net assets that we're able to show that you have the financial capacity to do this. And then finally, the last 10 points, we're going to be talking specifically about affordable housing and your background to target and develop affordable homes. So what we're going to want to see is, developers coming to the table who have had a long-standing history with developing and selling affordable homes. You're going to have a higher weight versus a market rate developer who has not had this background and experience. What I will say that this is something we're going to have to see on paper, and it's going to be one of those qualitative items that we talked about earlier. So we're going to want to see a very strong narrative within your proposal that your company has experience with the affordability, experience with the city, other or similar administration of funds to finance this type of product, and that will go a long way to weighting that particular item, which will be evaluated by the committee and weighed accordingly. So that is my overview on the developer capacity. Again, happy to start fielding questions later on in the presentation as they come forward. But I'm going to now turn it back over to Jeremiah and just start talking about some of the other aspects we're going to review through the proposal.
Thank you for that, Ray. And I do want to piggyback on something you just mentioned. Everyone, please take this opportunity to put questions that you have in the chat. Again, you have all the subject matter experts here online with you. So this is the perfect opportunity to ask those questions directly. And I'm going to hand it over with that to Steve Harris, who's the division manager of this program. And he's going to talk about the back half of the rest of the 50 points of this of our scoring criteria. So Steve, whenever you're ready, please take it away.
Jeremiah, thank you very much. And I'd like to thank Ray for his description of the significant weight provided to developer qualifications. Jeremiah talked earlier about the importance of the likelihood of success, and we call that the certainty of success. And I think that's why that is of such high scoring. I'd like to discuss the remaining items, which are disaster resilience, home attributes, community attributes, each of which are 10 points, and then affordability value, which is a total of 20 points. First, on disaster resilience, this scores 10 points. We require the International Building Standards of Fortified Gold standard and award 5 points for that commitment. The remaining 5 points for disaster resilience are scored among 4 categories, each of which receive 1.125 points each. And the scoring for these and other qualitative factors is graded based upon your documented description of features, establishing what feature you propose, which, quote, greatly reduces the risk of physical harm beyond the threshold. So provide specific, clear, realistic measures to describe why the feature greatly reduces risk for 1.25 points. If the feature you propose is not fully realistic or clearly and convincingly helpful and likely to reduce the risk, but not greatly, you should earn 0.75 points. If the feature you described may be, but is not likely or convincing, the feature is scored 0.5 points. And if you do not suggest features or do not describe a likely benefit, the scoring is 0 for the item. And this scoring rubric applies for all the categories. So this is disaster resilience is category A, reducing harm to home buyers for up to 1.25 points. Category B is cost benefit to home buyers. Resilience beyond fortified gold, what are the further savings, for example? So if you demonstrate further savings or benefit to the homeowner, then you will indicate that and receive the higher rating category or apply for a higher rating category. Category C is impact on persons with disabilities. What feature, how the impact on disabled persons allows them to fare as well as non-disabled persons in a disaster. So it's very important that you're contemplative of the impact of the features you propose and not only describe the feature, but describe why it provides the benefit to, in this case, disabled persons. Category D is the impact on neighboring properties, what features positively impact the neighbors. That could be things such as reducing the rain runoff, not causing a problem, underground detention, or other features. And each category of disaster resilience allow 0 to 1.25 points, and remember the initial 5 points for the IBS fortified gold resilience. So our next category is home attributes. And here again, we require a commitment to Energy Star requirements, and this qualifies for 5 of the 10 points for this section. Further attributes are divided between quality attributes for up to 2.5 points and value attributes for 2.5 points. We've shown examples for both and welcome your creativity. Our structure here is to open the door for you to provide those features that you believe bring a good value or solve a specific attribute concern. And as you describe not only what the feature is, but how it can benefit the homeowner, that is the basis for the scoring categories. So if the attribute, be specific as to the attribute, why it is beyond the threshold, and the justification for the ranking. And finally, community attributes. These are scored on a detailed consideration of elements outlined and assessment of the attribute and the specific benefit of the feature. So the applicant may earn 0 to 2 points per category for community amenities, for community commercial or retail space, for community green space for parks or playgrounds. An important item D is for preserving the near north side. We've done, as Jeremiah mentioned, extensive outreach to the neighborhood, and on our website is the concluding study and concluding wrap-up session that talks about the input from the neighborhood and the importance that we attribute to that. So finally, community mobility and safety are key features, and those will earn 0 to 2 points depending upon what you have contributed. So those are the first three 10-point categories. And now we'll move to the affordability value, which again is 20 points. And the affordability is a mathematical calculation, and this is specified within your application. So you can study that application and input specific price points and specific categories of homeowners you would commit to attracting, and the amount of subsidy, if you will, or reduction in home price in order to allow an 80% of median income family or less to qualify to purchase your home. The aggregate difference in pricing between the sales for affordable home and the sales price for market homes is the measure of affordability value. So if developer A proposes aggregate selling price of all homes of $54.4 million, and the market homes would sell for $69.1 million, then the affordability value is 69.1 minus the reduced cost 54 million. You have provided 14.7 million of affordability value benefit. So we believe that for the investment that the city has made of 20 million to acquire this select parcel of land in a premier location right at the metro station and right adjoining downtown and overlooking the city, 20 million invested in this premier site can give you the opportunity to construct homes, sell those, and provide a price whereby 51% of the homes will be affordable and sold to low to moderate income families. So you will calculate affordability value on your application, and this is designed to allow a commitment to pricing which passes the benefit to the home buyers to allow them to qualify. Affordability contribution per home can never exceed $135,000 each, so we need to be mindful of the comparison between the market price of a specific home and the affordable home price. Again, the proposal with the most affordability value will receive 20 points. All others are awarded points proportionately. So if developer A has 14.7 million of affordability value, developer B's proposal contemplates 12.2 million of affordability value. The developer B will receive the ratio of his 12.2 to the 14.7, or a 16.6 points. Developer A would receive the full 20 points. Developer B would receive 16.6. Our whole purpose is to make sure that we accomplish the objective of providing affordable homes. Our goal is a neighborhood with beautiful, well-designed, well-built, affordable homes. So the city is able to contribute up to 20 million. Unlock your creativity, and we look forward to seeing your responses. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Steve, and Ray, for that deep dive into our scoring rubric. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Crystal, who will talk about compliance requirement. And again, right before I hand it off to Crystal, I want to just reemphasize again to everyone, all of this is in the NOFA and all the subject matter experts are here. Please ask your questions. We are happy to answer in the chat. And with that, Crystal, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Jeremiah. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Crystal Boyce, and I will be discussing a few compliance requirements that will be subject on project activities. For those of you who may not be familiar, the Minority Women-Owned Small Business Enterprise, as well as the Hud Section 3 program rule, as well as the City of Houston pay or play requirements will be subject on project activities. Those requirements will be discussed briefly. However, please make sure that you refer to the NOFA for more detailed information. Also, for all of the awardees, you can also expect to be provided additional information. It is our goal to make sure that minority women-owned small business enterprises are utilized to the maximum extent on procurement activities. Program activities for this project will be subject to the MWBE goal requirements set by the City of Houston. Okay, and so all project activities will be subject to advertised solicitations with a 34% minority women-owned small business enterprise goal. That goal breakdown is 23% MBE, 11% WBE, with substitution for SBE participation capped at 4%. We want to make sure that general contractors are making good faith efforts towards awarding those agreements to minority women-owned small business enterprises to achieve goal requirements. Only firms that are certified through the City of Houston Office of Business Opportunity can be used towards meeting goal requirements. Please be sure that before any information is entered on participation plan requirements down the line, that you also make sure that you can verify that those firms are actually certified through the City of Houston Office of Business Opportunity. There is an online directory that includes over 3,500 certified vendors that can be utilized towards the achievement of these goal requirements. It does require for these firms to be certified at the time of award and at the time that the solicitation documents are received and submitted for review and approval. For more information about the City of Houston online directory and the certification process that's managed through the Office of Business Opportunity, please make sure that you visit the link that's provided on the page. That is houston.mwdbe.com for more information. That online directory, as I mentioned, includes over 3,500 certified vendors. That directory also allows you to do search parameters for the designation, for commodity codes, and it also allows you to download and filter that information. The HUD Section 3 program, for those of you who may not be familiar with this program, it is a program that was implemented by HUD in effort to generate opportunities for businesses and low-income individuals within the local community area on opportunities for housing construction, public construction, and any type of infrastructure for economic opportunities. And so what HUD wants to do is make sure that we're being good stewards of the funding. And so for activities that will be subject on these project activities, Section 3 compliance requirements will be subject for any contractor who receives a contract in excess of $100,000. And so that will be a ripple effect. That would be for the general contractor as well as any subcontractor that's performing activities on the project that are covered Section 3 activities. For those contractors with a contract in excess of $100,000, they will be subject to numerical goal requirements. Those requirements will require that for any construction budget, that at least 10% of those construction dollars should be directed to Section 3 business owners, okay? And so those Section 3 business owners and Section 3 business concerns can be found in our online directory as well. There's also a numerical goal requirement for soft costs. That means that 3% of the total soft cost budget should be directed to Section 3 business concerns. When you mention soft costs would be anything that's non-construction related. There's also a requirement for new hires, and so that means that any newly created opportunities that's a direct impact of the federal dollars on this project should be directed to Section 3 workers. A Section 3 business and a Section 3 worker is defined for its eligibility here on this slide. And so what I will discuss is the criteria to certify as a Section 3 business concern, also the criteria for a worker to certify as a Section 3 worker. And so if you have any firms that you know that does good work, you know that they'll be able to adhere to these program rules. We want to make sure that you extend the opportunity for them to also seek their certification as a Section 3 business concern, and also for any employees that you know that could likely be participating on this project and working for those business concerns. We want to go off, also extend that opportunity for them to complete the Section 3 worker application so that we can get them certified and used to achieve towards these goal requirements. Okay, and so the Section 3 business concern is defined as a business that has 51% or more or ownership controlled by a low or very low income person. Another criteria would be if over 75% of the labor hours performed by that business over the last 3-month period is performed by Section 3 workers. Okay, a business at least 51% owned or controlled by a current public housing resident or a resident who currently lives in a Section 8 housing. Okay, and so in order for them to certify as a Section 3 business concern, they must provide evidence that they meet one of those criteria. Okay, the Section 3 application for businesses is completed all online through the B2G Now system, and more slides will be able to detail that information. But we want to make sure that you understand that for those contractors who will be performing on the project, there are GO requirements, and we will be expecting you all to submit participation plans and requirements for review and approval that will show us that you have utilized those certified Section 3 business concerns and certified Section 3 workers to achieve those goal requirements. Unlike the MWSBE certification, the Section 3 certification requires that only firms that are certified through the City of Houston Housing and Community Development Department can be utilized towards achievement of those goals. Jeremiah, if you don't mind, if you can go back to the previous slide. Thank you. A Section 3 worker definition. In order for you to fit that criteria and to achieve that certification, a Section 3 worker is defined by someone who was hired within the past 5 years and someone who has documented proof that they are a worker whose income meets the HUD published income limits. It could also be someone who is employed by a Section 3 business concern and or someone who has proof that they are an active youth build participant. And so those are the criteria for you to certify as a Section 3 worker. One thing I would also like to mention that's not detailed in the slide is the targeted Section 3 worker. Though there have been several changes to the HUD Section 3 regulation as it relates to Section 3. That means that HUD wants us to look further into labor participation and opportunities more so than those contract opportunities. And for that reason, we have targeted goals on the project. There is now a 25% labor targeted worker rule. That means that at least 25% of the employees' work hours on the project should be performed by Section 3 workers. I want to make sure that you're clear of that. In order to achieve compliance in that area, you're going to be expected to demonstrate that at least 25% of the labor hours performed on the project is performed by actual certified Section 3 workers. When you mention targeted, a targeted worker will be someone who resides within close proximity to the project. A targeted worker could also be someone who is employed by a certified Section 3 business concern and or someone who, as I mentioned, is an active youth build participant. What HUD wants to see is that we're utilizing those targeted workers as well as the Section 3 workers on the project. In order to certify, you'll be expected to complete the certification process, the application process for certification. Our process only takes 7 to 14 business days once the application and all supporting documents are received. We do have a digital application that can be submitted for the Section 3 worker application. All of that information is provided on our website, and we also have where you can submit that information via email. But that is only for Section 3 workers. The Section 3 business application, as I mentioned, can be accessed through the link provided on this webpage. You can go through that site, B2G, for more information. That site also includes our online directory where we have several certified business concerns that could assist you in achieving those goal requirements. We also have the Section 3 worker application that you can locate on our company's website where you can find and filter the information as it relates to employees that could be useful towards achieving your numerical goal requirements as well as those targeted Section 3 workers. Here is where I mentioned about that benchmark, that labor benchmark. And so if you've been working on City of Houston projects or even on HUD particular projects in the past, this is a new requirement. And I just want to further reiterate that this information is subject to auditing, is subject to review, and we're on a tight scrutiny to make sure that all of these numerical goal requirements and all of these minimum goal requirements are met and or exceeded. And so again, I want to make sure that you all fully understand that before you complete any application, that you want to make sure that you keep in mind that there will be compliance requirements, and these compliance requirements will be reviewed for approval, and they will be monitored throughout the duration of project activities. MWBE, Section 3, the numerical goal requirements, as well as these additional new requirements that is mandated within the regulations. That 25% Section 3 labor benchmark, again, as I mentioned, this means that targeted Section 3 workers should perform on the project and should meet at least 25% of the labor hours performed on the project. Pay or Play. Pay or Play is a program that was implemented by the City of Houston in effort to level the playing field for those proposers that are performing on the project or that are interested in performing on the project that will be providing healthcare coverage to their employees versus those that do not. Next slide, please. Any contract in excess of $200,000 for professional services, construction, any type of service contracts will be subject to comply with those pay or play requirements. Please make sure that any contractor that you're expecting or that you are considering that will be performing on project activities are aware that they too will be subject to the pay or play requirements. That will be for the general contractors and any lower tier subcontractors or service providers on the project. If they have a contract valued at $200,000 or more, they will be subject to comply with pay or play requirements. What pay or play means that there will be employees on the project that should receive benefits, and those benefits of pay or play are for those covered employees. A covered employee will be someone who is at least 18 years of age or older, works at least 30 hours per week, and works any amount of time on a City of Houston project, okay? And so that means that if you are subject to adhere to those pay or play requirements, those covered employees in particular should receive either pay or play benefits. The pay option. If you select the pay option means that at least $1 per regular hour performed on a contract with the city will be provided and deposited into a contractor responsibility fund. This means that $1 per regular hour worked. It does not include overtime benefits. That means that only $1 per hour per regular hour worked will be provided to that contractor responsibility fund. Please make sure that when you're referring this information or relaying this information to your employees, that they are aware that this does not mean that they will get a $1 pay increase. This means that for every regular hour worked on the project, that they will be expected, or the contractor will be expected to pay $1 per employee per regular hour worked on that project. That amount goes into this large contractor responsibility fund, and it helps to offset the cost for uninsured individuals around the City of Houston. And so if you select the pay option, again, that means that you'll be contributing $1 per regular hour worked for those covered employees. Okay. If you elect to choose the play option. The play option means that you're going to actually be providing healthcare benefits to those covered employees. If you choose the play option, that means that the employer contributes no more than 75% of the monthly premium towards the total premium cost of that covered employee per month. And that employee contribution, if any at all, will be no greater than 25% of that monthly premium cost. Okay. Please make sure that those employees know that they also have the ability to provide you information about if they have coverage on their spouses or on their parents' coverage. We want to make sure that that information is documented, okay? And so there also, it's also an ability for there to be waivers. And so, like I said, if you have employees that already have insurance, they could be covered on their parents' insurance, or they could be covered on their spouse's insurance. You want to make sure that we have documentation for that, okay? And so if not, we'll be expecting those covered employees to receive either pay or play and or both benefits, okay? For more information about the City of Houston's Pay or Play program, please visit the information that's shown on the slide. The link available provides you more information about the program. It also provides you information about POP forms and things of that nature and more detailed information. But please rest assured that all of the information I cover will be provided to you all further down the line for those awardees. We'll also have a individual with our pre-award process that will reach out to you all once the award is actually finished and selections are made, that will further provide you information on the documentation that's expected down the line in that process. And so good luck to all of you all. We look forward to working with you. Best wishes and happy holidays. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that explanation on our compliance, Crystal. And just want to do a time check for everyone. We do have one last section and a Q&A. And I think on the registration we had listed for an hour, but we, all the staff here are able to stay longer than that to answer questions. So don't feel like we're rushing or anything like that. So And if you have to leave before the Q&A, we will have this webinar uploaded in the next business day or so. And with that, I do want to transition and hand it off to Maribel Rodriguez to talk more about Davis-Bacon and related acts. So Maribel, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, everyone. I will be going over the Davis-Bacon and related acts. Compliance prior to and during construction. So the Davis-Bacon Act is a federal regulation which includes numerous related acts. It applies to federally assisted contracts in excess of $2,000 for construction, alteration, and or repair, including painting and decorating. Federal assistance is provided through grants, loans, and loan guarantees. Requires contractors and subcontractors to pay their laborers no less than the local prevailing wage and fringe benefits determined by the Department of Labor. There are several acts that govern the Davis-Bacon compliance, and those are one is the Contract Work Hours and Safety Standards Act, which establishes the regulation of time and a half after 40 hours. And it also establishes a $27 rule of liquidated damages penalties for unpaid overtime. The other act is the Fair Labor Standards Act, which establishes the minimum wage, overtime, record keeping, and youth employment standards affecting employees in the private sector and the federal, state, and local governments. The Coupland Anti-Kickback Act is another act that is governed by Davis-Bacon, which provides the provisions and prohibits kickbacks of fees, wages, commissions, and granting of gifts for employees or contractors to work or benefit from federally funded projects. It requires the submission of certified weekly payroll. And it also regulates and allows and disallows employee payroll deduction wages. DOL Code of Federal Regulations 29, Part 1, 3, and 5. Part 1 determines a wage decision. Part 2 talks about the Coupland Act provisions, and Part 5 is the labor standard provisions for contracts. The Davis-Bacon section is also responsible for monitoring the City of Houston's workforce protection measures, and these are additional compliance requirements imposed by the city. And some of the requirements are, one is the safety training, which is requires that all workers on the construction site be OSHA 10 certified. Also, it requires that supervisors on site be OSHA 30 certified. And at least one supervisor should be OSHA 30 certified and must always be present on site while construction is going on. There's a requirement of an hourly base rate. Any individual performing work regardless of job designation or employment status must receive a minimum hourly wage of no less than or higher than $15 per hour, or 2, equal or greater than the prescribed federal prevailing wage. And the other requirement is apprentice hours. 20% of all labors must be performed by apprentices certified by the Department of Labor. Competitive bidding for a GC. So once the owner or the developer is granted an award and is ready for soliciting bids for the general contractor, make sure that the bid advertisement makes references to the Davis-Bacon requirement and also prior to posting. In addition, the bid packet must include all the Davis-Bacon language and the applicable wages. The request for general wage decision form must be completed and submitted to Davis-Bacon for the processing and issuance of the applicable wages. The selected GC must be cleared from any federal debarments and exclusions prior to construction contract award. The request for contractor clearance forms must be completed and submitted to the Davis-Bacon Section 2 process and approve the contractor. Construction contract must include the Davis-Bacon language as well as the prescribed general wage decision. The contract packet, the request for general wage decision, and the request for contractor clearance forms, they all will be found and available at the City of Houston's website under the Davis-Bacon tab. So here are some of the basic requirements during construction. Both the owner and the GC will be responsible to ensure that all subcontractors and their lower tier subcontractors comply with the Davis-Bacon requirements. Subcontractors and lower tier subcontractors must be cleared by the GC from any debarments and exclusions prior to construction or contractual agreements. Subcontractor agreements must include the Davis-Bacon language as well as the general wage decision. Proof of the OSHA 10 and the OSHA 30 must be provided prior to workers starting work on site. Construction workers must be classified and paid the applicable prevailing wages based on the trade being conducted. Construction workers must be paid on a weekly basis every 7 days, and subcontractors must submit certified payroll on a weekly basis. Subcontractors will also be responsible for submitting initial compliance documents and supporting payroll documentation upon request. The Davis-Bacon and related acts, along with the City of Houston workforce measures, will be applicable to all the construction activities throughout the life of the project, regardless of the size and nature of construction. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Again, thank you, Crystal. Thank you, Maribel, for explaining all of our compliance. And again, everyone, we are going to transition to questions and answers from the audience. Before we do that, I do again want to emphasize that all of this is in the NOFA, and we highly encourage you to read that. There is one thing that is not mentioned in the NOFA that we would like to share with you. I think, Steve, were you going to talk a little more about that before we jump into questions and comments?
Sure, Jeremiah, I'd be glad to. I think the pricing of affordable homes is very carefully described on pages 22 and 23, and specifically talking about an affordability period and talking about buying down the price of the home to the affordable home buyers. And specifically, we have a proposed rule change with the GLO, which will allow us to shorten the affordability period, and we expect to do that to a period of 5 years. And we've described in the NOFA that methods for achieving the affordability goals are left to a proposal from the developer. We want to have a proposal that accomplishes this, and one that is suggested is a combination of a first and a forgivable second mortgage, and we contemplate that that could be forgiven over a period of 5 years. So that is our expectation, but we do fully expect that there'll be some further information dispersed prior to the time of your response. Thank you.
All right. So as Steve mentioned, that is the proposal. We've put up the flag chain beyond HCDD, and if that goes through correctly, if that goes through, as to Steve's point, we will notify you. We will put out a notice, and that way everyone will know that prior to the application deadline. So with that, we are going to transition to the Q&A. And we're going to start off because recognizing some folks may not be able to read the chat. I'm going to just go through quickly the questions and answers that have already been submitted. Please use this time to, it's a lot of information, so please use this time to keep asking questions in the chat. And if you prefer, you can use the raise hand icon now at this point, and when I'm done going through the questions and answers we've already gotten, we will call on you. So whichever method works better for you. So let me go ahead and scroll back up to the top of our chat and see what questions we received. And thank you, Olivia, for answering those questions as we were going through the presentation. The first, we had two back-to-back questions. Would you be open to having a portion of the units as LIHTC affordable rentals in addition to affordable for sale homes? And I think might be a separate, but also a question that was asked right after. Well, due diligence materials have already been commissioned, be available to applicants. So to answer the first question about affordable units, the answer in the chat is the goal of the Harvey Single Family Program is to increase home ownership opportunities and housing stock that was impacted by Hurricane Harvey. Therefore, we cannot consider affordable rentals at this time. And to the second question about due diligence materials, yes, the city has made that available. The phase 1 environmental and site plans are exhibits in the NOFA that you can access now. Follow-up questions from another participant: will more than one builder be able to participate? And if so, so this is definitely a two-part question. So if so, how many builders will you select? The answer to that is the current NOFA does not limit the number of developers who will be awarded. As discussed, developer capacity and experience is 50 points of the scoring criteria out of 100. A developer can take the lead of a project and hire more than one builder to complete the project. The lead developer will have site control because the city will convey land only to one developer. And scrolling down, looking for more questions. It looks like the next one, and apologies folks, as I first world problem of navigating multiple screens. Can the end user use City of Houston grant program to purchase these homes? I'm sorry, Olivia, did you want to take that question? Oh, okay, that question's being answered in the chat. Thank you again for that, Olivia. She just put that in there, Camilla. So the answer to that is the affordable homes will be priced so that the home buyer / end user should not need any additional down payment assistance. Nonetheless, we do not prohibit home buyers to combine down payment assistance programs as long as the assistance does not overlap or double dip. And the next question, can you describe what, if any, environmental remediation has taken place at the site to date? And so, Steve or Olivia, would you like to take that question? And that was about if any environmental remediation has been taken place at the site to date.
Yes, I think that the ground is good to go. The phase 1 has been completed. There are some additional environmental conditions that will be mitigated and require addressing surrounding potential sound. But I think that as to the ground itself, it is suitable for residential development.
Okay, thank you for that, Steve. And the next question I see is there any standard for how the market rate price will be evaluated? So Steve or Olivia, who would like to take that question? Oh, okay, that question's in the chat, and then Steve, I'm just gonna read that and then Steve, hand it to you to elaborate if you don't mind. So the where was it? I'm sorry. Now Steve, actually, if you want to go ahead, I lost it. So apologies, everyone. I think
the genius of this plan and proposal is that the market will establish the price of the market rate houses. The difference between market and the sale of the affordable homes will determine the amount of benefit of affordability benefit provided from the program. And again, that cannot exceed $135,000, but it's important that the developer not overestimate the market price of the homes in order to provide more affordability, because we'll be held to achieving the level of both sales of the market price homes and delivering very identical or comparable affordable homes at a reduced price from that market sale. So we have the sale of the homes to firmly document what the market price is. If the developer is overly optimistic in what they might sell those homes for, we will find that the affordability value is diminished because they weren't able to achieve the sales. So be very mindful of being precise in your marketing. And I think marketing is always a key thing, and what we rely on the developers for. But affirmatively furthering fair housing is a key marketing component. We had a question from a realtor the other day who would like to assist a developer in marketing the homes, and clearly that's going to be a key consideration for you. Thanks, Jeremiah.
Thank you, Steve. And I think, unless I'm misreading this, I think a question in the chat was essentially asking what energy efficient standards have to be met. And I think, Olivia, you answered for that question. It was very broad about efficiency standards, that the homes must meet the city building code, meet fortified gold resiliency standards, and be Energy Star certified. Those are requirements that are in the NOFA that we discussed. And then Aaron asked, Aaron, you asked that question about market rate price, which Steve addressed. Will builders need any additional permits before they begin? And I'm not entirely sure how to address that question. If you could expand on that, I think that'd be helpful in response. Let's see if you want to go ahead and take that.
Absolutely. All required permits are still in place, and you've probably worked with our permitting department and know they're available to help. I'd also cite that an advantage we have is that the Housing and Community Development Department has a close working relationship with permitting. And as you get into that phase, we think we can help streamline that process for you and move it along, because our goal is to move quickly to achieve full development, construction, sale, and delivery of affordable homes by August of 2024. So permitting is a key piece of that, and we have assurance that they're on board to help us make sure we serve you. And day in and day out, I think our permitting department is available to help. They're aware of this project.
A question that just came in the chat, I believe, is for you, Crystal. And the question is asking for clarification. I'm just going to read it word for word. Am I understanding correctly that 25% of all labor hours on the entire project are to be performed by Section 3 workers?
That's correct. So what the requirement is stating is that at least 25% of those labor hours should be performed by targeted Section 3 workers. And so how we'll be tracking that is to make sure that those contractors that are subject to the numerical goal requirements will make sure that their total labor hours meet those requirements. We have monthly reporting requirements where those contractors will be able to detail that information, and we'll be able to tally that information for reporting purposes.
Thank you for that clarification, Crystal. I'm looking to see, I don't see any other questions unless I missed some in the chat, and I don't see anyone using the raise hand icon. And again, I just want to re-emphasize this time is for all of you attending. So please, if there are any questions, now is the time to ask. So I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions left from the audience. Okay, well, I'm not seeing anyone typing in the chat. I'm not seeing anyone using the hand raised icon. So I think we can go ahead and start winding down. Oh, one more question. Can you describe the closeout requirements to be met by August 2024? So Steve or Olivia, would you like to address that question?
Olivia, could you do that?
in order to close out the project, we have to certify, you'll get a certificate of completion on every home built, but we have to, every low to moderate income home buyer, we have to certify that they've actually closed on those loans. So we will go through that process of certifying those homes that are sold to those home buyers before we'll actually be able to close out each project. So that means as the developer's responsibility is to market and sell those homes, keep in mind that you have not fulfilled your obligation to the city until each of those homes are sold to the low to moderate income, or the affordable homes are sold.
Thank you, Olivia, for that. And that is okay. A follow-up question: how quickly does HCD anticipate being able to close out after developer is selected?
If I understand your question, you're saying, I guess if you could, when you say close out, do you mean close on your loan and your agreement with the city so you can begin the construction?
And Aaron, if you want to go ahead and unmute your microphone and okay, Aaron responded, yes, close on funding to begin construction.
We're very motivated to get this project underway. What we find is the lag in funding the project and starting and your notice to proceed on the construction, it gets tied up in the negotiation of the development agreement. So if our lawyers and your lawyers can come to an agreement sooner rather than later, we'll move forward as quickly as you do.
And I think our timeline is estimated on page 11 and talks about housing committee approval, and then 4 weeks from the housing committee approval, we'll go to city council, and once that's accomplished, and execute a contract within 4 weeks. So that may be a little optimistic, but that's certainly our goal. Timely delivery is key for us, so we're committed to that. And I'd like to just thank again Jeremiah for this great session, and everyone, friends we haven't met yet, for being with us today, and really look forward to working with you in some very good and creative proposals. So thank you all.
There is another question that came into the chat that Olivia just answered in the chat, so I'll read the question and then the answer. Again, this time is for all of y'all, so if there are any other questions, please put them in the chat or use the raise hand icon. So that question was, will retainage be held until all homes are sold? And the answer, again, which is in the chat, is that yes, 10% retainage will be held. So we're going to wait another, give a minute or so. I know that was a ton of information we presented to all of y'all. So we condensed a 60+ page document into a 45-minute presentation and some slides on a PowerPoint deck. So I just want to recognize that and give folks time to ask any questions that that might be at the tip of your brain that you haven't quite formulated yet. And while you're doing that, I will just, again, the reminder that we will be posting this recording as well as this PowerPoint presentation on the HCDD website, probably within, well, for sure by the end of, before closing, close the business tomorrow, potentially earlier. So you'll be able to access this recording via our YouTube account, and you'll be able to access this PowerPoint presentation from our website. I have not seen any other questions being typed into the chat, and I'm also not seeing anyone using the raise hand icon. So with that, I think we can go ahead and wind down. Oh, Tawana, I see you have your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Yes, I raised my hand because I just wanted everyone to know that after this session of questions is over, do not send any questions to this site. They should all come to yours truly, tawanaroan@houstontx.gov. I just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you.
Tawana, that is a perfect way to wind down. I put that slide back up for everyone to have your email address. And that will be in the PowerPoint presentation when we upload that as well. Aaron, I see you have your hand raised. Did you have an additional question?
Yeah, last question. Sorry, I thought I'd just be easier to not type it. I think in the NOFA I read the GC must be selected via an open bidding process, and we cannot have a design build firm. Am I correct on both of those?
Steve or Olivia, would you like, are you able to address that question?
I could provide a response to this, to that item. So, to the answer, does this have to be, a closed bid process with the general contractor, much like we do in the multifamily program? We are petitioning developers within this program, and developers are not required to follow the 2 CFR 200 standards that are, that do require that. We do provide that information in our solicitation regarding best practices, but it is not a requirement. We would allow a developer to self-select a general contractor or number of contractors to do the vertical and potential vertical builds on the building, but it is not subject to the 2 CFR 200 standards that's required for the bidding practice.
Yes, yeah, and I also read something about design build not being allowed. I wasn't sure if that was from the city hiring the developer or also, again, is that something that's a requirement of the developer?
Design build contracts, securing both the design firm and your general contractor in one fell swoop. There's, sometimes a discussion regarding, what that really, what the scope of that is. If that is your intention, we would ask you just put your proposal into writing in your submission of what that contract would look like. So we're very clear on what you're actually, securing.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
All right, and thank you for that, Ray. Anyone else have any questions before we wind down the presentation? All right. Well, again, I'm not seeing any hands raised for questions being typed into the chat. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. We know everyone's working. It's a busy time of year, so we appreciate you taking the time.
Jeremiah, I think we got another hand raised.
I do see, just as I was saying that we have Camilla. Go ahead, please mute yourself and please ask your question for the team. I guess so the hand raised icon disappeared, so it might have been an accidental click. So I'll give you a second to unmute yourself in case you did want to ask a question, but otherwise, I think we can go ahead and wind down. Thank you again, everyone, for attending. Again, it's in the chat. Sorry. Okay, you already asked in the chat. Got it. Okay. Well, with that said, then we will go ahead and wind down. Thank you again, everyone. Please be on the lookout for the recording to be uploaded by close of business tomorrow. And see, I could not unmute. So you want to go ahead and just put your question in the chat?
Camilla, I think that you're asking, how do you find any other procurement opportunities from the city or any development procurement opportunities within the city? I'll put the link to our SPD website in the chat.
And thank you for doing that, Olivia. And that's where you'll find all of HCDD's procurement opportunities. So with that, we will go ahead and wind down. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Again, we appreciate the time you spent with us here today. And everyone have a great rest of your 2021. Thank you and have a good day.